President.
The senator from Louisiana.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I want to speak first for a moment about the energy and water development bill that the Senate will shortly be considering. As you know, Mr. President, our budget is so large that we divide our appropriations bill into 12 separate bills, mini bills, if you will. And members, in some cases, are assigned, in some cases, choose to serve on these subcommittees to draft a portion of the appropriations bill. I have the privilege of serving as the chair of the Energy and Water Development portion of the larger appropriations bill. My ranking member, in other words, the ranking Democrat, is my friend Senator Patty Murray from Washington State. We have conferenced that bill, Mr. President. What does that mean? Well, that means that all the Democratic members and all the Republican members of the Energy and Water Development Committee have worked out our differences. Doesn't mean we're all happy, but we've worked them all out. We also worked out our differences with the House, the Republicans and the Democrats in the House who sit on what we call energy and water. I'm not saying everybody's happy, but they've accepted the bill. We've reached an agreement. And in fact, the House has already passed it. And we're going to be considering that bill, the energy and water bill, here in a couple of days. And I just wanted to quickly, I'll speak more later, perhaps. I just wanted to quickly highlight what we're going to be voting on here in the next couple of days. The bill's $58 billion. That's less than the current budget. I'm very proud of that. I said at the very beginning of this process I was not going to approve a budget that did anything but spend less. We have done that. Nominally, it's a $27 million reduction. Non-nominally, which means if you factor in inflation, it's a 2.8% reduction over the current energy and water bill. So in the new fiscal year 26, we will be spending 2.8% less than we are spending on the energy and water bill right now. I'm very proud of that. We increased defense spending. As you know, Mr. President, the energy and water bill is divided into a defense portion and a non-defense portion. We increased spending dramatically for defense. In fact, we're spending $912 million extra on defense in the energy and water bill over the current budget, a 2.7% increase, even though overall the bill is 2.8% less. Well, obviously, we had to cut something. We did. We're cutting non-defense spending, the non-defense portion of the bill, by 3.8%. We took a meat axe to the Green New Deal provisions in the current energy and water budget. Now, not everybody's happy about it. I get it. But we have already spent a lot of money on the Green New Deal, too much in my judgment. So we reduced it in the new energy and water bill. Moving back just for a second on defense spending, what are we spending that extra money on in defense? Well, I'm not going to read everything to you, but suffice it to say that we plussed up or increased nuclear weapons development, nuclear weapons sustainment. We're strengthening our nuclear weapons stockpile testing. We're strengthening its certification. We're continuing to provide money for a new nuclear warhead, for a sea-launched cruise missile. We're going to spend more money on plutonium pits and special explosive nuclear materials. Final 2 points I'll make about our bill. We substantially increased spending for the Corps of Engineers. substantially. In the current, the new energy and water bill, we are spending $1.7 billion more on Corps of Engineers projects. That's a 19% increase. And we're also doubling our spending on a strategic petroleum reserve. To sum up, the energy and water bill, vis-a-vis the current budget, cut spending by 2.8%. We increased defense spending by 2.7%. We paid for that increase overall, and accommodated the decrease in overall spending by cutting non-defense, mostly green energy, 3.8%. We've increased spending for the Corps of Engineers dramatically, $1.7 billion. That's a 19% increase, and we have doubled the amount of money for the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. And I'll be happy when the time comes when we take up the bill to answer questions. Let me talk about another subject. Housing. You can't talk about housing if you don't start with supply and demand and the cost of housing. What determines prices in America, in free enterprise system? What determines the price of housing? A lot of things, but basically it's supply and demand. In a free enterprise system, supply and demand determines price. Now, no free enterprise system is perfect. Ours is about as perfect as you can get, but in some economies that say they're free enterprise, they're not really not. For example, the government will come in and put its thumb on the scale and affect supply and demand. The government might come in and say, China does this all the time, say we're going to favor or subsidize, either with direct money or special loans, solar panels. China does that. They wanted to dominate the world in solar panels. They do. The Communist Party in China went in and gave especially good treatment to the manufacturers of solar panels. I don't much like that. It's China's business. I don't like it when that sort of thing happens in America because it interferes with free enterprise. It's an illegitimate manipulating of price and supply and demand. How else can supply and demand or prices be affected besides supply and demand? Well, you can have antitrust violations. If all the makers of microwave ovens get together in a back room over cigars and a sip of whiskey and say they're going to fix prices at a certain price, they can run the price of microwave ovens up. That's a crime, too. It's illegal under the Sherman Antitrust Act. You can go to the pokey for that. So it's supply and demand. Well, what causes prices, specifically the cost of housing, to go up? Well, it's when demand for housing is greater than the supply of housing. Duh. It's not complicated. Remember when we had 9% inflation under President Biden? Not just in housing, but in everything else. I'll tell you how that happened. President Biden, he used the pandemic as an excuse, but we were past the pandemic. And he and my Democratic friends appropriated billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars, in many cases directly to the American people. And people got that money and said, thank you very much, and they went out and spent it. They spent it on goods and they spent it on services. The problem was the people who produced the services and made the goods were not prepared. Many of them had had supply lines during the pandemic that were affected. So you had this huge amount of demand with the American people having a huge amount of money, and they wanted to buy, but the supply wasn't there. So what happened? Prices went up. At one point, prices went up to inflation reached 9%. Now, the good news is it has come down. So we're better, but we're not well. Inflation, I think new numbers came out today, they're at about 2.7%. That means prices are still going up. Many of them have come down. Prices are still going up. They're just not going up as quickly as they were going up under President Biden, thanks to the new economic policies adopted by the Trump administration and the Republican Congress. One of the things, though, that hasn't come down in price is housing. I mean, I don't need to tell the American people. It is just breathtaking. The average first-time home buyer in America today, I want you to think about this. To buy a home, you got to save up a down payment, and you got to have enough income so they'll loan you the money so you can comfortably pay the mortgage. The average person today, first-time home buyer, doesn't reach those parameters until they're 40 years old. 40 years old. Owning a home is the American dream. And housing's gone up everywhere. It's gone up in my state. It's gone up in the Northeast, the Southwest. It's really gone up in California. A refrigerator box behind an Outback costs $500,000 in California. Nobody can afford homes anymore. They just can't. Why is that? Well, you can hear a lot of experts talk about it. Some of them will say, well, it's interest rates, you know. Interest rates went up. They did go up. And some will say it's this, and some will say it's that. But I'll tell you the main reason housing has gone up so much and hasn't come down. Because the demand for a house is greater than the supply. We don't have enough houses. We just don't. And you're probably thinking to yourself, well, why doesn't somebody build some? Well, the private sector's trying. But in many states, not all, but in many states and many cities, they're being stopped by local government. And you say, whoa, why would a councilwoman or a councilman in a city of 100,000 people in Colorado not want to see more houses built? I'll tell you why. Because that city council person, man or woman, controls the zoning laws and controls, through rules and regulations, housing starts. And a lot of the people, I'm not just picking on Colorado, this is true in every state. A lot of the people don't want more houses built. Why? Because they already own a house. And it's worth a lot of money. And it's a big part of their nest egg. And they know that if in their area more houses start being built, then the price of their home is going to go down and they're going to lose money. Now, I'm not picking on Colorado. That's true in Colorado. It's true in every state in our wonderful union. It's called NIMBY, not in my backyard. It's especially true in California, the most liberal state God ever put breath in. That's why we're not building more residential housing. That's why housing starts are not going up. Now, what's Congress's usual reaction to that? Well, we start passing bills telling the folks in local government how to do their job. You won't find housing starts in the United States Constitution. You won't find the subject of housing in the United States Constitution. It's a state, but it's really more of a local issue. Zoning laws are local. Some states may have a statewide zoning law, but most zoning laws, which determines housing starts, who can build houses and who can't, and what size they've got to be, and how big the lot is, and what the streets have to look like, that's up to the local governments, okay? And usually what happens, Congress lectures our friends in local government and says, you got to do this and you got to do that, and we're going to mandate this and we're going to mandate that. The truth is, we're not housing experts. We're not there in the community. That's why God created members of city councils and mayors. They are closest to the people. They should be in charge of housing. They should be in charge of zoning. They should be in charge of deciding what size the streets are, the lots are. But it's undeniable, and some are trying, but it's undeniable that a lot of them are saying, under political pressure from their constituents, we don't want new houses because it might affect the price of the existing houses, and the people whose houses go down in price won't vote for me. That's the way a lot of local folks think. Not all of them, but a lot of them. So what can we do about that? Short of us getting in the middle of the business of our cities and telling them what zoning laws should look like, here's what we can do. We could use a carrot and a stick. Every year, we send between $2 and $3 billion to cities across America. Every city gets a little bit of it. Some cases, a lot of it. But every year, just like clockwork, we appropriate sometimes it's really more like $3 to $4 billion. And we send that money through the Department of Housing and Urban Development, and based on the population in a city, they determine who gets what portion. And the local governments, they love what we call Community Development Block Grant money, CDBG funds. You say CDBG to a person in local government, they'll start salivating. They love this money like the devil loves sin. Why is that? Because it's free money, and they have a lot of discretion. They, meaning our friends in local government, have a lot of discretion on how they spend it. They can rehab public housing. They can build streets. They can use it for code enforcement without the government, a federal government, staring them down. So I came up with this idea, convinced Senator Elizabeth Warren to join me. And we drafted, and indeed passed, I'll talk about that in a second, a bill called the Build Now Act. And it's really very simple. It says Elizabeth and I said, we're not going to tell local governments how to increase housing starts. We're just going to tell them if they do increase housing starts, we're going to reward them with more CDBG money. If they don't increase housing starts, we're going to take some of their money away. Carrot, stick. And here's how it would work. Every year, we look at all of our cities. I think the cutoff is 50,000 people or more. And we look at the housing starts, percentage-wise, in each of our cities across America. And after we look at all of them, it'll be a bunch of them, but we've got computers. We look for the median point, not the average. We don't add them up and divide. We look for the median point. The median point is the city right smack dab square in the middle. Half of the cities have increased housing starts more, and half of the cities below the median have increased housing starts less. So that's our starting point, the median. Let's call it 4%. If our bill were in effect, and next year, the median, you can call it average if you want, the median is 4%. If you're a local government and you met 4%, you get all your CDBG money. Good for you. You get a gold star. Maybe if the median is 4%, you did even better. Not only did you reach the median level, 4% increase in housing starts, you got 6%. Guess what? You're going to get extra CDBG money. You get extra money. That's the carrot. Now, you're thinking to yourself, there's a catch here somewhere. Okay, there's no free lunch. Somebody tells you something's free, Anything that's free, somebody had to pay for it. Somebody had to work for it. Here's the catch. We're going to get that extra money to reward the cities that increased housing starts above the median. We're going to take it from the cities that don't, up to 10%. Now, what does that mean? That means we're not going to tell them, we're not going to tell our friends in local government whether to increase housing starts or decrease. And we're sure not going to tell them how to do it. They don't have to do a damn thing if they don't want to. But if they do increase housing starts, they're going to get extra money from the federal government. And if they don't, they're going to get less. And it will work. Others agree with me. Senator Warner and I passed the Build Now Act unanimously out of the Banking Committee. Every Democrat, every Republican voted for it. Then it came to the Senate floor. Every member of the Senate, every Democrat, every Republican said, we like it. We'll take a dozen of these. They liked it so much. My colleagues liked it so much. They made it a part of the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act, which, as you know, is a bill we have to pass every year. And housing was not directly relevant to the NDAA, but under the rules, my colleagues liked Elizabeth and I's bill so much, they said, let's put it on the NDAA. And we did. Flew out of here. Then it went over to the House. And we started negotiating the NDAA because the House passed its version of the NDAA, and we had passed our version of the NDAA, and they weren't the same, so the people in charge of the NDAA from the Senate sat down with the people in charge from the NDAA in the House and started negotiating the final product. Let me choose my words carefully here. And there were a couple of folks on the House side, for whatever reason, decided to take our Bill Now Act out. And they did. Despite the fact that every member of the Senate was for it, and a lot of House members. And I'm not going to kid you, I was upset. I called that person and those handful of people I called them an epithet that ends with the word whole. I did. But I didn't, I swallowed it. I took it, so that's the legislative process. I took it full in the face, went home, had a beer, petted my dog, tried to get over it, lived to fight another day. It was stupid, but they did it. But we lived to fight another day. Now, when moms and dads lie down to sleep at night and can't in America today, I can tell you one of the things they're worried about is the cost of living. And part of the cost of living is the cost of housing. And this bill will work. And it would have worked. and it would be law right now. But that was then. You have to look to the future. Mr. President, if you're listening, please endorse this bill. To my friends in the House, please bring this bill up and vote for it. It will work. We've been jawboning and talking about, oh, you know, it's the cost of living. Some say it's fake, some say it's not, some say we're doing better. We are. Well, things are better, but they're still not well. And this bill will lower the cost of housing in America. And it'll do it under basic principles of free enterprise. You can write this down and take it home to mama. All things being equal. If you increase supply and demand stays the same, price is going to go down. It'll work. So I hope my friends in the House will take these comments in the spirit in which they were meant, and they will pass Senator Warren's and I's Bill Now Act. And I hope the President is listening, and he will endorse it. Because I'm going to repeat it again. This is America. Owning a home is the American dream. A satisfactory home is not a refrigerator box behind Outback. The American people deserve better. Mr. Chairman, what would you like me to do next? Yield the floor? Quorum, ask for a quorum? I think I'll ask for a quorum.
The clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Alston Brooks.